Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. We will do four surahs today. Surah al-Zukhruf, al-Dukhan, al-Jathiyah, and al-Ahqaaf. The 43rd, 44th, 45th, and 46th surahs of the Quran. These surahs are the last four surahs of the fifth surah group of the Quran. We have seen that in this group, quite apart from the usual themes of warning to the enemies of the messenger and good news to his companions, we have the predominant theme of Tawheed, unity of God, that has been mentioned, has been emphasized. In these four surahs, quite predictably, there are two pairs. Surah Zukhruf and Surah Dukhan form one pair, and Surah al-Jathiyah and al-Ahqaaf form another pair. We've seen it that these surahs, they all begin with Amin. So that's one feature that binds them all together. So let's start with Surah al-Zukhruf. This surah is surah number 43, and it also starts with, as I said, Alif La Hamim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Hamim. This is Surah Hamim, Wal Kitab al-Mubin. And the clear book is an evidence. This same beginning you will find in the next surah as well, which is one reason why they are a pair. The Quran sometimes mentions a part of a statement and omits another part because it's obvious, it's implied. And one advantage of this style of presentation is that if you get involved in understanding the Quran, you are able to dig out what is implied yourself. That gives you a reason and incentive to always be alert, focused in reading the Quran and in trying to find out what exactly is the true meaning of what is being mentioned. So if we bring out what is implied, the complete statement would be that this clear book is an indication that it's from God. That is, its clear message, unmistakable, is in itself an evidence of the reality that it has come from our Creator. Inna ja'alnahu Quranan Arabiyyan la'allakum taqilun. We have made it an Arabic Quran so that you may understand. Obviously, it links with the earlier verse. It has been designed to be able to be understood, and that is why it's clear. And it has been presented in Arabic so that the people who were the first addressees of the book, they could understand it properly. Obviously, the way the Almighty has designed the life of this world, He has arranged for different nations to have different languages. Had there been one international language all over the world understood and spoken, it would have been, the book of God would have been in that language. But now that we know that that's not the case, then it had to be that the language of the book uh, should have been in the language of the messenger who was delivering the book and his nation. So the Arabs were given this privilege that it was in their language because the Prophet was from amongst them and he spoke and understood Arabic language. However, when the Quran says that it has been designed in couched in Arabic language so that you understand, for the Arabs, they have to understand it in Arabic whenever they read it. For non Arabs, if they can manage it, they should try to learn Arabic so that they understand it directly. There is nothing like it. It's the best way of understanding the Quran. However, if that's not possible, and quite obviously it's not possible for many people, many non Arabs, then they should understand the text through translations. They should read, recite the Arabic text, and should also understand the translation, the message of the Quran through translations, because the idea of sending this book is that it should be understood and thus be guided. We move on to verse 9 of this surah. It says, and let's not forget that the basic underlying theme in this group of surahs is to emphasize, to clarify, to put across the understanding of Tawheed, the unity of the Creator. It says, verse 9, Wala in sa'altahum. And if you were to ask them, Man khalaqa samawati wal arda, who created the heavens and the earth? لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ لَيَقُولُنَّ, they would certainly say, خَلَقَهُنَّ الْعَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ عَزِيزُ الْعَلِيمُ, the one who is mighty, exalted, and who is knowledgeable is the one who created. That is, the one who created heaven and the earth has to have the qualities of being dominant, exalted, mighty, as well as of being knowledgeable. Uh, he should know everything. So these people of Mecca who ascribe partners with God, they still believe, they still are convinced that the heaven and the earth were created by the God whose attributes are the attributes of him being exalted, mighty, and knowledgeable. Allazi ja'ala lakumul arda mahda. But then the Almighty goes on to clarify, to explain. You see, quite often it so happens that you have an understanding, but your understanding is vague. It's just one statement, but it's not properly understood. In order for you to understand a reality, you need to quite often expand upon the brief statement of the understanding that you have in mind. Because that one statement is just a statement of creed. It's going to be repeated, and nobody would bother to look at it, its implications, its details. So that those details have to be brought out. So the Quran goes on to say that, don't you think, don't you see? Allazi ja'ala lakumul arda mahda. He's the one who made this earth for you a place like bed. It has been leveled. It's not a place where you find it difficult to walk, to go about your business of life easily. It invites you to do things which would make your life comfortable. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمْ فِيهَا سُبُلًا, and he has made on this planet, in this earth, ways for you, call them roads, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ, so that you can find your way, so that you can travel. Allazi, and the heavens and the earth have been created by the one. Nazzala minas samai ma. who sent down from the sky water, rainwater, biqadarin, measured as much as was needed. Pancharna bihi baldatam maita, and we revive thereby the dead soil, the dead land. Kazalika tukhrajun, that is how, likewise, you are going to be brought back to life. You will you will return to life. You will be you will be caused to emerge from your graves. This is what you must think about. And haven't you thought that Wallazi, he is the one. خلق الأزواج كلها. He has created species, all types, كلها. وجعل لكم من الفلك والأنعام. And he made for you in the ships as well as in livestock and animals, matar kapun, such that you can mount on them to travel. لِتَسْتَوُوا عَلَى ظُهُورِ. This he did so that you settle on their backs. You 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 do what you know is important to travel, to be there on their backs. ثُمَّ تَذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ رَبِّكُمْ. And when you do it, you then recall, remember the blessing of your Lord, your Creator. إِذَا اسْتَوَيْتُمْ. When you are settled upon them, استويتم عليه وتقولوا, and you say, that's what your creator expects from you. You say, Subhanallazi sakhkhara lana hadha. Exalted is the one who has subjected this to us, who has made it subservient to us, put it in our service. وَمَا كُنَّا لَهُ مُقْرِنِينَ. We could not have otherwise subdued it. We could not have put it to our use. وَإِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا لَمُنْقَلِبُونَ. And indeed, to our Lord we'll all return. That is, God wants us to be reminded that like we are traveling on the backs of animals, on the ships, from one place to another, let's not forget, likewise, we are traveling in this life, from this life to another life. So that should always be remembered. This life is temporary, and one would be foolish not to remember the life coming after this one, no matter what we do. And وَإِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّنَا لَمُنْقَلِبُونَ. So we should always keep remembering that ultimate end of life. Then the Quran in this surah mentions about the arrogance of people who disbelieved. Their arrogance was based on this foolish understanding that they thought that they were the people who were rich, powerful, and therefore they had a right to get the divine revelation wahi and become prophets if there was a need for any prophets. So وقالوا, when they said, لولا نزل هذا القرآن. Why was this Quran not revealed على رجل من القريتين عظيم, in any one important, great man from amongst these two cities, that is Mecca and Taif? Why did it have to be revealed on somebody who was born an orphan, who is a poor man relatively? He doesn't have any political power. So this arrogance they had was the obstacle that prevented them from understanding the Quran and believing in it. You see, in order for anyone to get guided, the message has to be first and foremost understood. There are obstacles in the way of understanding the book, the Quran. They've got to be removed. We've got to be focused. But if somebody is arrogant, arrogance is an obstacle, is what prevents you from reading the Quran properly. And this is what prevented people, the kuffar, from reading it, understanding it, and believing in it. The Almighty responds by saying, Ahum yaqsimuna rahmata rabbik. Is that these people have been given the trust, the charge of distributing your Lord's mercy? Is it that they have been given this power, this privilege? نحن نقسم نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم. It is we who have apportioned, distributed uh, among them their livelihood fil hayat dunya, in this worldly life. وَرَفَعْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ. And we have raised some of them over others, darajat, in status, in worldly status. لِيَتَّخِذَ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا سُخْرِيًّا. So that some of them can get work done from others. Some of them can use others to serve, to do service. In other words, the design of this life is such that in order for getting things done, we need to have a hierarchy. And in a hierarchy, there are some people who are placed above others. That's just a worldly arrangement. That should not make anybody to foolishly feel that if he finds himself on a higher level of a hierarchy, he is superior to all others, those lower in his ranks, in all matters. That is what causes a person to be arrogant. And things keep changing in life. وَرَحْمَةُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ مِّمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. And your Lord's mercy is far better than what they are gathering, what they are accumulating, amassing. That is, this wealth that has caused them to become arrogant. Well, this is what is preventing them from the message. But they shouldn't. They should remember. They should be reminded that it is God's mercy which really is important. Then we move on to verse 36 of the surah, which says, وَمَن يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ. And the one who is drawn away, blinded from the remembrance of the most merciful, نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانٍ. We appoint for him a shaitan, Satan, فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. And he becomes a companion. That is, if you don't understand God's message, his remembrance, and you ignore it, then most certainly a shaitan would come to you and would become your companion. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ. And they then prevent those humans on whom these Satans are appointed, they prevent them from the right path. وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. And they have a feeling that they are rightly guided. So they are deceived by Satans because they're not bothering to understand, take seriously the message of their Lord. From here we move to the next surah, Surah al-Dukhan, which partners with this surah to become a pair. Surah Dukhan 2 begins with Amin, which is one indication of the fact that these two surahs, they are forming a pair. And the next verse, Wal Kitab al-Mubin. This clear book is an evidence of the fact that it's from God, has come for guidance. You see, had this book not been for guidance, it would have been designed in a way that would have been difficult for many people to understand. But the Almighty has designed it, presented in a way that it's clear, provided you bother to understand it. You make efforts to learn its language, or if that's not possible, to understand it through translations. Once you make it a point that you're going to understand it, its understanding is going to make itself available to you. You will get the message. So that's where it starts from. And then goes on to say, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah. Indeed, we revealed it in a blessed night. That is, the night when it started getting revealed is a Mubarak, a blessed night. Uh, it's the same night, obviously, which is also described as Laylatul Qadr, which is what we are hopefully engaged in the nights that we are going through these days to find, to experience. Uh, Somehow, unfortunately, because we're not inclined to read the Quran properly, and we somehow are not interested in giving the Quran its due status of being decisive in understanding the religious message. People have gone as far in confusion as to claim that this night, which is mentioned here, is different from the other night that is mentioned in Surah Al-Qadr, Surah number 97. Uh, and they say that this is the 15th of Shaban, which is the subcontinent called Shab-e Barat. Not at all. These two verses clearly indicate that Laylatul Qadr, what has been described Laylatul Qadr in one passage, has been described Layla Mubarakah. Inna kunna munzirin. Most certainly, we had decided to warn. We were bound to warn people. Fiha yufraku kullu amrin hakim. On that night, uh, matters based on wisdom, they are decided, they are made distinct. That is, matters regarding the entire existence of this creation. They are sorted out, they're decided, they are handed over to those who are made responsible to implement. So it was in that important night that, amongst other important decisions that were taken, a very important decision of revealing the Quran was also taken. Then we move on to verse 25, wherein the Almighty, after having described the story that is so very often mentioned in the Quran, the story of Musa alayhi salam, Moses, uh, when he went to Pharaoh and his people with the message and a very clear sign through his miracles, uh, he and people accompanying him, they all rejected the message. And the end result was that they were drowned in the sea. Musa alayhi salam, Moses and his companions, they left. They were given a miraculous passage through the sea. And as soon as they were able to cross the sea in the dry land that was made available for them, they were pursued by Pharaoh and his companions. And the miraculous facility was withdrawn by the Almighty, and the waves took over, and they were all drowned. So the Quran says in verse 25, uh, in verse 24, it says, وَاتْرُكِ الْبَحْرَ رَهْوًا, and He said, leave uh, the sea in stillness. Innahum jundum mughraqun. Indeed, they are an army that's going to be drowned. So that's what happened. And then the Almighty says, Kam taraku min jannatin ma'uyun. How many gardens and springs they left behind. You see, they were all so deeply involved, obsessed with their worldly riches. They were so proud of their gardens and their springs. But when it came to their destruction, they just left everything behind. وَزُرُوعٍ وَمَقَامٍ كَرِيمٍ, and crops and other sights which were noble, excellent. وَنَعْمَةٍ, and many other comforts. كَانُوا فِيهَا فَاكِهِينَ, in which they were involved, they were indulged, and they used to be amused. That is what was all left behind. كَذَلِكَ, that is how it happens. وَأَوْرَثْنَاهَا قَوْمًا آخَرِينَ, and we made others to inherit such facilities. That is, those very people who whom they were torturing, they were given such facilities elsewhere. All this is not really meant for people to stay with and enjoy this life forever. It's only temporary. And then, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ, neither the heaven nor the earth wept for them. There was no sadness anywhere. They met with what they deserved. فَمَا كَانُوا مُنْظَرِينَ, and they were not reprieved. They didn't get any further chance to survive and to correct themselves. Then we move on to, from here, verse 34, which talks about the philosophy of the people who reject the truth. You see, I mean, when you are living in this world, obviously, the story of this life is incomplete. You've got to complete it. One way of completing it or solving the puzzle is through the message of the Almighty, which is the only right way. But if that's not done, then the only other option is that one should just come up with something else, which is obviously not acceptable, not convincing, doesn't make sense. But one has to satisfy oneself. So the Quran says, "Inna haulai la yaqulun." Indeed, these disbelievers, they are saying, "In hiya illa mautatun al-ula." This is going to be only our first death. وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُنْشَرِينَ, and that's going to be all about. We're not going to be resurrected. And obviously, when you make a statement like that, you have to come up with some arguments. And their argument was, فَأْتُوا بِآبَائِنَا. So if you think, in kuntum sadiqin, if you think you're right, you're truthful, then bring back our forefathers. Where have they gone? You think there is another life? Why can we not have them back if that's what the truth is? Ahum, the Almighty responds by saying, Ahum, are they better? Am qawmu Tubba, or the people of Tubba, one of these nations, one of those nations who were destroyed. That is what the people of Tubba were. وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, and those who came before them. أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ, we destroyed them. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا مُجْرِمِينَ, indeed, they were criminals. The Quran repeats this theme over and over again, that the ones who reject God's message, when it is presented most convincingly, that's one of the mistakes that we Muslims make. We think that, anybody who does not accept the message is a criminal. No, it is only when the message is presented quite as effectively, impressively as the prophets do. that the criminals are exposed. They are not able to accept the truth because there is this arrogance, their inability that hampers the process of the possibility of them accepting. So, whether it's the nation of Toba or others, they were all destroyed and they were criminals. So that's one response of the Almighty. But the other response is the next verse. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. We did not create heavens and the earth and whatever is in between just to play around. وَمَا خَلَقْنَاهُمَا. We made the two, that is the heavens and the earth, for no other reason, إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ, except for the truth, for a purpose. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most of them don't know. That is, if people, humans, were to live in this world for a certain while, and then they would just die and perish, it really means that the creator of this world created this life for no purpose whatsoever. People come and they go. They spend some time, they do good deeds, some people do bad deeds, and all of them, at the end of the day, are reduced to the same, nothing. It's just not thinkable. The Almighty, the Creator, didn't create it for just having a brief period of joy, of play, of some kind of sport that he wanted to watch, and then uh, and then destroy it, bring it to an end. He created it for a purpose, a definite cause, and the cause was to enable humans to get an opportunity to operate in this life as free agents. You see, it's this freedom that we have with us that is going to ultimately lead us to either deserving the Almighty's pleasure, His kindness, His rewards, or if we were misuse it and not misuse it once or twice as a matter of policy, then such people are going to be taken to task. If that's not happening, that this whole existence is purposeless, is a joke, and it's cruel. And this is something which the Almighty, it is not imaginable that He would ever allow such things to happen. That is the response to those people who said that, just this whole existence is temporary, and after death, it's going to be no further possibility of living. Then finally, we find at the end of this surah, 58, verse 58 and 59, the Almighty is mentioning the fact that فَإِنَّمَا يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ. We have made it, this Quran, easy, appropriate in your language, O Prophet, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ, so that they are properly reminded. As I said earlier, this is how the surah started. The Quran, it was mentioned in the previous surah that the Quran has been revealed in Arabic language, and that in itself is another reason. Imagine that the two surahs form a pair. At the beginning of previous surah, it was said that it's been revealed in Arabic language so that you understand. Here, towards the end, it's mentioned that, O Prophet, it's in your language so that they are reminded. And I said earlier that if it's not our language, then we need to do something to understand it. Either learn Arabic or read, understand it through translations. فَارْتَقِبْ. So, O Prophet, you watch, wait. إِنَّهُمْ مُرْتَقِبُونَ. They too are waiting. That is, now that everything has been made clear to them, and they are still bent upon rejecting the message, what can you do? The Almighty is going to decide about the timings of His decision to get implemented according to His wisdom. So, His one aspect of His wisdom is that you should wait. They are also waiting, and the end is around the corner. It's not going to take long. Then we move on to the other two surahs that are in pair, Surah al-Jathiyah and Surah al-Ahqaaf. Again, beginning with Alif Lam, sorry, beginning with Hamim. Tanzilul Kitab min Allahil Aziz al-Hakim. This is Surah al-Jathiyah. Hamim, this is Surah Hamim. Tanzilul Kitab. The revelation of this book, min Allah, is from the God al-Aziz al-Hakim, who is exalted, mighty, and is wise. Inna fis samawati wal ard la ayatin lil mu'minin. Indeed, in the heavens and the earth, there are signs for those who believe, for those who want to believe, who want to understand. That is, if you were to make an attempt to understand the one who created the heavens and the earth, you will be able to see through what he has created, the signs of his attributes. You will be able to see that he's wise, he's knowledgeable, he's kind. He is enabling us to survive, so he sustains, etc. And that would lead you to come closer to him and be able to accept his message, which is nothing but a description of his attributes and the results of his attributes. وَفِي خَلْقِكُمْ وَمَا يَبَثُّ مِنْ دَابَّةٍ آيَاتٌ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ. And in your creation and the way he dispersed, spread across all living beings, moving creatures, ayatul liqawmi yuqinun, there are signs for the people who would want to be convinced. وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. And in the alternating nature of the night and the day, وَمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. And in what God has sent down from the sky, مِن in the form of sustenance. Well, what he sends down is rain, but the rain causes crops to grow. So what he sends down from the sky is his sustenance. That's what the Quran style of presentation is, what you come across sometimes. That instead of mentioning what is the immediate result, he mentions the end result. So instead of saying that he sends down rain, water, he says he sends down from the sky rizq, sustenance. فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. And then he brings back to life the earth, the soil, after it was dead. وَتَصْرِيفِ الرِّيَاحِ. And there are signs in the directing of winds, different directions that they take. Ayatul liqawmi yaqilun. There are signs for people who reflect, who use their intellect, who try to understand. Tilka ayatullah. These are the verses of God. Natluha alayka bil haqq. We are reading out, reciting these verses before you in truth. That is, they are truly from God, and their truthfulness is manifest in the way they express themselves. فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Then, after Allah and His verses, which other statement are they going to believe in? What else do they want for them to come to believe after God has sent His verses most clearly? The Quran mentions then the attitude of those who rejected the truth. The Quran goes on to say, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. Woe to those who are liars and sinful, who cause harm to others. They're not, they're not worried about the moral principles that are there in their conscience. They just ignore them. Yasma'u ayatillah. It is these people who listen to the verses of God, tutla alayhi, when they are recited before them, thumma yusirru mustakbiran, and then they persist arrogantly with their own attitude approach, ka'allam yasmaha, as if they never heard it. Fabashshirhu bi'azabin alim, and give them tidings of a painful punishment. That is what the Quran says is crime. You see, it so happens. It's not that, some people believe and others don't believe simply because it's just accidental. People have different tastes. They belong to different backgrounds. Yes, indeed, that's what's happening right now. But that's a different trial. It's a different ball game. In the case when the messengers would come, the message used to be delivered so very clearly that all evil people would be deprived of guidance, and all good people were bound to get faith guidance. And that is what the Quran is mentioning. And those who were evil, they would become arrogant and would not listen. So, having mentioned that, the Quran says, وَإِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا شَيْئًا. And when they would notice, find something in our verses, in our message that they could pick, اتَّخَذَهَا هُزُوًا. They would ridicule it. Obviously, when you make a presentation, even though it's perfect, howsoever good it is, there could be some aspects of presentation which some people can pick to make fun of. That's what they used to do. أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. Such people are going to get humiliating punishment because they're arrogant. They think they are the best. So they can do anything they would choose to. Then after that, we move on to verse 23, which really mentions another aspect of the problem these disbelievers have. It's one problem, but it has various different aspects. One aspect is the arrogance. The other aspect is, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَٰهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen a person who has taken as his God, deity, his own desires? So people go after their desires. And when they're overly indulged in it, then if there comes some message, truth to them, that would stop them from going after their desires beyond a certain acceptable limit, they will then arrogantly spurn it. أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَٰهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ. And God has misguided such a person on the basis of knowledge. God guides, He misguides, but He guides those about whom He knows that they deserve it. And He misguides those about whom His perfect knowledge informs Him that they don't deserve it. And it's always based on merit. وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ. وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً, and he uh, puts a stamp seal on their ears and their hearts, and he erects a curtain in front of their eyes so that they cannot hear the truth, they cannot understand it, and they cannot see it. فَمَن يَهْدِيهِ مِن بَعْدِ اللَّهِ. So who can who can guide him, guide such people after God has decided to misguide them? That is, there's no chance that they're going to be guided after God has decided for them to be misguided. Nobody can guide them. And God has misguided them because they didn't deserve. Their attitude wasn't the right one. And when that happens to them, أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ, the Almighty says, then are you not reminded? Do you not want to pay attention? Do you not think that you should use your God-given faculties properly so that you understand the message? This appeal in the Quran is found uh, a number of times, over and over again. And the idea is that people are reminded that this life, the opportunity of living in this world that they have is temporary, and they must avail it. So, you know, um, as the Almighty is uh, sensitive, as indeed His Prophet was, there are appeals. People have been asked to pay heed. Uh, they say, these people, وَقَالُوا مَا هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. This life is the only life. نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرُ. We die, we live, and nothing destroys us except the time. You know, it's the flow of time. Sometimes nations get destroyed, sometimes they get flourish, they flourish, and there is no principle, there is no philosophy behind it. It's all happening accidentally. وَمَا لَهُمْ بِذَلِكَ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. They've got no knowledge, no proof, no evidence for it. But they do it because that's what suits them. That's what enables them to continue following their desires with impunity. In humillah yazunnun, they're just assuming. There's nothing but assumption. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ, and when our clear verses are recited before such people, مَا كَانَ حُجَّتُهُمْ, they've got no arguments, إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا, except that they say, ائْتُوا بِآبَائِنَا إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring our forefathers if you are really truthful. That is, if your claim is true, then where are our forefathers? You see, this propaganda, negative propaganda, it picks something and then strongly emphasizes upon it. And there are people who get fooled. So the Almighty wants us to always use our intellect properly. قُلِ اللَّهُ يُحْيِيكُمْ. The Almighty responds by saying that it is God who gave you life, who gives you life, ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ, and He's going to cause you to die. ثُمَّ يَجْمَعُكُمْ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, and He's going to gather you all on the day of judgment. لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, whose occurrence happening, there is no doubt about it. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most people, they don't know, and they don't want to know. Finally, the surah mentions in verse 28 about people on the day of judgment. وَتَرَى كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ جَاثِيَةٍ. You will find every nation on the day of judgment on their knees. That is, nations who had rejected the message of the messengers. كُلُّ أُمَّةٍ تُدْعَى إِلَى كِتَابِهَا. All nations are going to be invited towards their record, their result card, their performance card. الْيَوْمَ تُجْزَوْنَ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And it's going to be mentioned to them that you are being uh, rewarded, uh, compensated, recompensed for nothing except for what you were doing. So here is your result card. And now, on the basis of your performance, you will get what you deserve. The next surah, Surah al-Ahqaaf, is pairing up with Surah al-Jathiyah. It also begins with Amin. This is Surah Amin. Tanzilul Kitabi min Allahil Aziz al Hakim. The revelation of this book has come from the one who is Al Aziz al Hakim. He is the one who is mighty, and he is the one who causes everything to happen. So, the beginning of these surahs uh, being similar is one reason why you are inclined to feel that they form pairs. It goes on to say, Surah al-Ahqaf, ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق. We did not create the heavens and the earth and what lies in between them except for a purpose. وأجل مسمى, and for a given specified duration. That is, there are two things clear from looking at this life. One is that it's temporary, and the other is that it has purpose. That's what the Quran says over and over again. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, as for those people who are bent upon rejecting the truth, أَمَّا أُنذِرُوا مُعْرِضُونَ, they ignore what they are warned against. They are given the message and they just ignore it. Why? Because they don't want to understand. And then we move on to verse 9, wherein the Quran is mentioning to these people of Mecca who were used to reject the message and would say, why is it needed? Where has it come from? So the Quran says, verse 9, Qul, tell them, Ma kuntu bid'am min ar-rusul. I'm not a, I'm not somebody who has invented this system of messengers. There is a series, and there are those who came before. I'm not the only one who has come. And I don't know what's going to happen to you or to me. I'm not claiming that I've got control over everything. In attabi'u illa ma yuha ilayya, I'm just following what has been revealed to me in the form of this book. Wama ana illa nazirun mubin. My job is only to warn you. And warning I am to you, handing out to you most clearly. Then we move on to verse 15, wherein the Almighty is mentioning about a good person. As I said, good people, they get the privilege of believing. Evil ones, they don't get the privilege. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. And we advised man to be good to his parents, to deal with him uh, in a good manner. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. His mother carried him in hardship, and she gave birth to him in hardship. وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ ثَلَاثُونَ شَهْرًا. And his um, birth, the period she carried him, and then his weaning period took 30 months. Then, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ, he grew up and reached the age when he was strong. وَبَلَغَ 40 سَنَةً, and then he reached the age of 40 years, attained 40 years of age. Qala, he said, this good person, he prayed, Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati anamta alayya. Oh my Lord, enable me to be thankful on the blessings that you bestowed upon me. That is, to begin with, you are young, you have all sorts of distractions, but gradually we understand. And when we reach the age of maturity, our mental maturity, when there are no further excuses available to go astray, the age of 40, one comes to realize that this world has been created by our Creator and He deserves to be thanked. So allow me, enable me to thank you for the blessings you've given me, and also to thank my parents, and that please enable me to do good deeds, deeds that are going to please you. Tardahu wa aslih li fi zurriyati, and let my kids also be good. That's what normally is what a good person would do when he finally comes to the realization that this life is a trial. Inni tubtu ilayka, I incline towards you. I am repenting and coming towards you. Wa inni min al-muslimin, and I am now amongst those who have submitted. أولئك الذين نتقبل عنهم أحسن ما عملوا. Such are the people whose prayers we accept, and we accept their good deeds. ونتجاوز عن سيئاتهم, and we ignore, overlook their misdeeds that they had done in the past because they've sincerely repented. في أصحاب الجنة, they are going to end up amongst the people of the paradise. This is what the Almighty has promised. وَعْدَ الصِّدْقِ الَّذِي كَانُوا يُوعَدُونَ. It's a true promise that they have been promised all along. However, there is another person, وَالَّذِي قَالَ لِوَالِدَيْهِ, who says to his parents, أُفٍّ لَكُمَا, woe to you, off to you. أَتَعِدَانِنِي أَنْ أُخْرَجَ. Are you telling his parents, are you telling me that I'm going to be brought back to life? وَقَدْ خَلَتِ الْقُرُونَ مِنْ قَبْلِ, whereas there have been people who've died, perished before me. وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ, and the two parents, they call for help to Allah. يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ وَإِلَّكَ Amin, and they say, why don't you believe? What's gone wrong with you? Inna wa'dallahi haqqun. The promise of God is true. فَيَقُولُ, so he responds by saying, إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. It's nothing but fairy tales, legends of the former people. There's nothing true about it. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ حَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلُ. Such are the people about whom the word has come true. فِي أُمَمٍ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, the same as was among the nation which had passed on before. مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ, amongst jinn and men. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا خَاسِرِينَ. Indeed, they are all going to be the losers. In other words, the Almighty, having mentioned two different types of people which we do find in this life, comparing the two and their performance is enabling us to know the fact that all humans were given the same nature. They were given to live in this life freely, to make their choices. It's the decision of the individual which ultimately counts, which way she would want to go. So some people choose to go the right path, and the others choose to go for the wrong path. May the Almighty enable us to choose the right path and be able to understand His book and be able to follow it to the best of our abilities, and as and when is possible, we also be able to let others know what the real expectations of our Creator is from us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.